Hi, my nosy rosies. Welcome back to my kitchen. My next stop on my beginner friendly Thanksgiving series is a dessert. I made an upside down pecan bundt cake. It turned out perfect. It was my first time trying it out. I will link the recipe down below where I got the inspiration from, but I'm going to show you how I made it differently. So the original recipe calls for a box of vanilla cake mix. I decided to go with yellow, and I'm going to show you how I make my box cake mix. I always use the Betty Crocker Super Moist. That's my favorite cake mix, or Duncan Hines is very good too. Instead of water, I use milk. Instead of oil, I use butter, and I do double it. So I use 2 sticks of melted butter. And then I also add in an extra egg, and I'm going to add in a splash of vanilla extract. I did follow the recipe exactly to make the pecan mixture. It called for light corn syrup, a little bit of salt, some brown sugar, 1 stick of butter, and 1 cup of chopped pecans. If you love butter pecan ice cream, you're going to love how the pecans tasted on top because that's exactly what it reminded me of. But let's go ahead and get into it and I'll show you how I made it. So I like to melt my butter in my glass measuring cup, and I usually just take it 10 seconds at a time. It only takes maybe 2 or 3 times until it's nice and melted. So just in a small bowl, I have my 1 stick of butter melted. I poured it in there. I got my brown sugar, and I wanted to show you guys how I take it out because it is 1 packed cup of brown sugar, which means that entire measuring cup should be full of the brown sugar. Then I went in with 1/4 a cup of the light corn syrup. Make sure it's the light one. And I'm just using my spatula to get all that corn syrup out. And then I'm going to go in with 1/4 a teaspoon of salt. So just barely a little bit of salt. I'm going to start whisking this all together. I did use a metal whisk. And I'm just essentially mixing this all up. The recipe said to keep going until the brown sugar was completely dissolved. And I feel like it was ready once it kind of started to look like a caramel sauce. And at this point, I was already tasting it and it tasted so good. It reminded me of pecan pie without the pecans yet, but we're going to get to that next. So once you have a nice smooth consistency, it's almost like a silky caramel type consistency. You just want to make sure all your brown sugar is dissolved and you're good. And then we're going to go ahead and add in our pecans. Say pecan or do you say pecan? I say pecans, but I'm going to take 1 cup of pecans. I usually buy mine in bulk at Sam's. I found that that's a lot cheaper than buying them like at Walmart or Aldi or something like that. So I just buy mine in bulk and they last a very long time. And I'm just going to put these in a Ziploc baggie and just take some aggression out on them. I would suggest crushing them a little bit more than I did. I wanted mine to have, a bite to it. I love pecan pieces, but I should have went a little bit smaller, but it still turned out fine. And I wanted to make sure it was still a cup after I crushed it up, and it was. So that's why I put it back in the measuring cup. But I'm just going to take that same spatula I was using earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and fold all those pecans in, and this is what it looks like. So now let's go ahead and get started on the cake. I'm going to melt 2 sticks of butter in the microwave. Again, 10 seconds at a time. You do not want your butter to explode in the microwave because it will. And for all my beginners in the kitchen, I wanted to show you how I crack my eggs. I crack them in a separate container. It's a great way to prevent any shells going into the cake batter because they are harder to get out. If you do happen to crack a shell in there, use another piece of shell to get it out. That's why I was trying to split one in half to show you. And also when you crack them on a paper towel, you can just wipe everything up and throw that paper towel right in the box. And I'm going to go in with 1 cup of milk instead of water, and I'm just going to go in with a little splash of vanilla extract. So you can prepare the box of cake just as the directions say. It will come out just fine. I've just noticed over the years that I've done this, the cake comes out so much better when you add the extra egg, you add the vanilla, sub the butter and the milk. It just tastes so much better. I get so many compliments on this cake. And when I was in high school, this is how the bakery that I worked for made them. So trust me, it is good. I am going to say though, the batter, as you can see, comes out a lot thicker than if you follow the directions normally, and it is going to take a little bit longer than your usual box cake mix. So just keep that in mind if you do use this in the future. Just add a few extra minutes or just check on it. You don't want to overcook it. It's not going to overcook, but it is a lot more dense. As you can see, it is a very thick and fluffy batter. So I got my Bundt pan after the holiday season at Dollar General. I got it for a penny. I don't know if any of you know about penny shopping, but you can get Bundt pans at Dollar General very cheap at the end of the season. So keep your eye out for that. But I'm going to spray my Bundt pan heavily. Heavily grease it with some spray or some butter. But I just went ahead and sprayed it, and now I'm going to add in that pecan and brown sugar mixture to the bottom, and I'm just going around and spreading that into an even layer with my spatula, kind of patting it down and going around. And just make sure your oven is preheated at 350 degrees by this point, because you're about to pop this bad boy in the oven. So once I have a nice good layer of my mixture right here, which by the way tasted amazing. If you want to taste it, go ahead, don't be scared. Nothing's gonna happen to you. You'll be fine. There's no raw egg in this part, but it tastes great, by the way. After that, you're gonna go ahead and add in your cake mixture on top. As you can see, after sitting for a few minutes, it really thickened up. But don't freak out, it's going to work out just fine. It comes out nice and fluffy and moist. Some people are not going to like the texture of this. I'm going to tell you straight up right now. But just try it, see what you think. Let me know in the comments if you liked it. So I'm just going to go with my spatula again, spreading this around, making it even, and then we are going to pop this in the oven. I took about 40 minutes for my cake. The oven took about 40 minutes for my cake, and you have to let it cool for 10 minutes before you try to flip it. And as you can see, it is pretty challenging and the pan was still hot. So just be careful, take your time. If you need help from somebody in your household, if you have it, ask them for help. Just make sure you wait the 10 minutes so that your cake will come out. Now, if I was a professional video editor, I would figure out how to add in the choir, the church choir sound singing to this part, because when I lifted the Bundt pan off of this thing, I was so worried that it was going to be all messed up like it would in the past when I've made Bundt cakes. But look at this. Oh, it came out so perfect. I was very shocked. I thought that I had messed it up. I thought that it had cooked too long. I think a few less minutes would have been fine, but again, it was a very thick cake, so the 40 minutes was good. But it just looked so good to me. And then I just went through and got those pieces of pecans at the bottom of the Bundt pan that were kind of stuck. And I just went through and filled in like any gaps just to make it look pretty. Any pieces that were missing a pecan or two, I just went ahead and added some to the top, as you can see. Then I just let this cool for a few more minutes, kind of let it set, let it cool off. And then I went in and cut myself a piece. And I have to tell you, this is probably one of the best cakes I have ever made. I know that sounds like a stretch, but it turned out delicious. The taste from the pecans on top and all that brown sugar and everything just melting down to the bottom, absolutely delicious. All in all, this cake took less than an hour. It came out spongy. That's how I like my cakes. Give it a try and tell me what you think. But I think this is a wonderful recipe if you're just getting started in the kitchen. I will tag everything down below that I used. And just give it a try, guys. I thought it tasted amazing. And now I'm ready to make pecan pie because this tasted very similar. Love you guys, and I'll be back in the kitchen soon. Bye.